Welcome to the Binge Dietitian podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Sumner, registered dietitian, focusing on helping men and women end binge eating, end food guilt, and finally say yes to life. This podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not substitute for medical and personalized advice. Hi guys, welcome to the Binge Dietitian podcast. And my name is Jonathan, and I have a special guest here, Fareeha J. And she specializes in just raising awareness about South Asian diets. But enough about me talking and introducing you to all of us. Tell us more about you, Fareeha.
Hello, Jonathan. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It's a pleasure to be here. Well, a little bit about me. As you said, I'm Fareeha J. I'm a registered dietitian. I was a mature student, so I qualified not very long ago as a dietitian in 2016. Since when I qualified, I decided, just for fun, I started a Facebook group and for South Asian people because my origin is from the South Asian background. So when I started that Facebook group, it attracted a lot of attention. And within days and months, I had thousands and thousands of followers on the South Asian, on that Facebook group. And when I started that Facebook group, I realized that there's so many things missing. There's so many gaps in knowledge and information amongst the South Asian communities. So I decided that at that point in time, I decided that I will work for the South Asian community since I am also from that background. And that's how I started working with South Asian communities. So what I do is I do online consultations with South Asians from around the globe. So it's not just UK, but it's anywhere around the globe. Apart from that, I do small projects with different community organizations, different charities. Most of the time, working for the South Asian communities.
Wow, that's amazing. And so you've been exposed to so many people's diet habits around mostly South Asian communities. Have you noticed any disordered habits that some people might have come across with you?
So, Jonathan, what happens is because the online consultations which I do, I would say that my specialty is more of diabetes, and most of the consultations which I get is more or less weight loss. So,
Mm.
when people book me in, they want to lose weight. So, I don't specialize in disordered eating disorders and all, but when I see my patients, my clients and all, regularly, what I come across is I will not call it eating disorders, but there are some disordered eating behaviors there.
Mm.
And it is extremely common. Like I will not generalize it and I will not say it for everyone, but every other client of mine will have at least one or two, because it's a spectrum, isn't it? And I can't say that it's black and white, but it's the spectrum. And probably the things which I sometimes pinpoint, they probably will not validate as eating disorders, but like skipping meals and sometimes avoiding certain food groups. Many of them will be following fasting or compulsive overeating. So they're not eating all day, and then all of a sudden they will overeat and then feel guilty about it. And then I get a lot of those as well who, and eat something and then they'll go for a run and then never come back because they think that they're burning their calories. So I keep seeing these patterns quite a bit. So when and I'm sure the things which I've said, it is not, it's for everyone. So this is happening with the South Asian communities as well, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess like disordered habits don't discriminate with any culture, any group of people. And yeah, and I just want to say, do you think with South Asian communities, is there a taboo about not talking about or just keeping it in about your struggles, about your weight or your struggles about your body image? Is there any taboo around that?
Jonathan, I think the South Asian communities, they're a lot in denial. And
Mm.
I think that you using this term saying that, taboo around disordered eating, I think there is not even enough awareness whether this is a condition or not. The taboo or the stigma will come later on. There is stigma, and I'll talk about that as well. But that's then the second step. They at least someone knows about it, and then they will associate stigma with it. They disregard it. They don't even think of it as a condition, and many of them will even not know what it is. So even if someone is, the things which we pointed out, like avoiding sipping meals or fasting, they will never think of that as a, uh, uh, any problem. That's not a problem at all. And as opposed to that, the belief that, if someone there is this misconception that if someone is eating healthy, that person is trying to lose weight as well. So that is a belief that, and I think that's a common belief. But as far as stigma is concerned, I would relate it to, when we think of eating disorders, I would say that if awareness is not there, but though, as far as the depression and stress side of it is concerned, people always try to brush it under the carpet. They never show it to the world. And then there's this blame game, Jonathan, that okay, so you've not been a good person, and that's why you're facing these problems. You've not been a good Muslim or a good to your religion, or you've not been praying, and that's why. So giving putting that blame game on that person who's going through it, and it is said so much that the person themselves, they start to believe in that. So maybe they were not thinking about it, but when they told about it so much, they think that yes, probably it is because they're not doing this, and it's not. No one will consider it as a condition. So surely, first awareness is needed, and second stigma. But I think the stigma side of it we will only overcome that with awareness. So awareness is first, and then working on the stigma side of it.
That's really interesting, Fareeha. And like you said earlier, like awareness is very important. And you're one of the dietitians that really raises so much awareness for South Asian community. And that's just really, really amazing. Is there anything people who are listening can do to recognize, or can you just list out a few habits which are disordered for people who don't know if their eating habits are disordered? What are the certain habits?
So then again, Jonathan, again, we have to first think that a few things. I would like to relate it with the South Asian communities. I think with the South Asian population, what's happening is there is too much fixation on looking a certain way. I don't know if the Bollywood has done it, the social media has done it. I know this is happening in other populations as well. But with the South Asian communities, it has become to an extent that it is affecting their mental health as well. So women want to look a certain way, and as far as when you're saying awareness, although I do not specialize in the eating disorders, but I try to create that awareness that what they see, the images which they see, or the actresses or the models which they see, they have that's not real. They're using filters, they're going under surgeries, there's so much happening. But you won't believe it, Jonathan, but I get so many of my clients saying to me that I want to look like so and so. I want my body shape to be like so and so. So imagine the extent of this. So the extent of fixation on weight loss has, I think, among the South Asian communities, is giving rise to these eating disorders as well. Because the belief that if I won't eat anything all day, I will lose weight. So this is the idea, and obviously then it turns into these eating disorders habits. So when you say that what are the different signs, again, it is every person is different, and the signs can be different. What I've noticed is that, which I've already discussed, that they will they will try to avoid going to social evenings with their friends, with their families, or apart from that, they will, as I mean, they will do the fasting bit I discussed, the exercise, they will do excessive exercise, and they have negative view about their body as well. That also I have noticed. Thinking that, I'm good for nothing, I'm hopeless, and, always validating themselves with how they look. So not that what the kind of person they are. So again, every person will be different, but it's just again and again, as I'm saying that bringing this out, talking about it as we are doing now will make a difference.
Yeah, and for people who are listening at the moment and you think you're struggling with disordered eating habits, especially if you're South Asian, then it's something to bring forward to Fareeha. The disordered habits, like you said, it's really, really common, much more common than you think. But diet culture tells us that no, this is normal. And so there's this thing called the Eat Well Guide. And for those who don't know what it is, it's very similar to the food pyramid. It's about including certain fruit and veg, like apples, fruits, and pears, then some carbohydrates, which is your bread, rice, stuff, food, like food groups like that. But it's mostly Western origin. Do you think it makes it difficult, Fariha, for South Asian communities to figure out what healthy eating actually looks like?
Yes, Jonathan, that's a very good question. Jonathan, when I was, because I do, as I said, I do online consultations, I do one to one, I do group
Mm.
talks, but most of them with South Asian. So when I used to use this Eat Well guide, which is a guide, to eat the what should we be eating, and there food groups in it. Um, I always had to elaborate a bit more, because what you would see was that most of them was based on Western diet. So always elaborate more. I always used to use different pictures or bring my own food in to make it more that people can understand it. So surely it will make a big difference, if it is explained according to that way people's culture. So what I've done is I've developed a South Asian Eat Well guide, which is which has all the foods the original Eat Well guide has. But I've also included foods which the South Asian communities will consume on regular basis. And Jonathan, you would not believe the response which I've received. A twinkle in their eyes when I put that up on the screen, we're doing talks and stuff, all of a sudden they become really excited, and the keenness to learn a bit more. Just using the term dal, I'm just giving an example. Just they this person eats like us, and they start talking about it, and they start exchanging. So surely, being culturally competent in the dietetic world is extremely important, and it does play a massive role. Mm, as far as South Asian Eat Well guide is concerned, I'm doing my dissertation on it as well, so we'll see what the results are for that as well.
Oh, I bet it's gonna be really, really interesting. There's gonna be really interesting results to that.
Let's see. Let's see.
And I think it's really important. Like, whilst you give consultations with people, I think sometimes the most important thing is just that relatability, like you said, because I don't know if from what your experience is, but do you think the people you see come to you expecting to be told to have like white bread for breakfast, or brown bread for breakfast, I mean, or let's say burgers, or like mostly like Western foods.
Yes. Yes, Jonathan, the thing is, most of my clients, which they come to me, they come with the expectation that I will be talking to them with regards to their food. And many of them, on starting of my consultations, tell me, give me the reason that that's why we are here. Because we went to so many dietitians and they were really good, but we couldn't understand what they were talking about. And they couldn't understand what we eat. So we were unable to establish that bond, and were unable to relate. So this is what the other thing which I would say on this level is that that's why we need to be giving cultural competent advice, because you won't find so many South Asians. There only be few South Asians from dietitian. I got a consultation with a lady from the Nigerian background, and honestly, I was dreading it. Because I felt that I'm not culturally competent to give her advice on the Nigerian guidelines, the Nigerian diet. So there should be something where we all dietitians can go towards, and where even if we get people from any population, any culture, we're able to get advice to them, at least if there is something there to look up to. Like in my case, I've developed this eat South Asian Eat Well guide, not just for my use, but I've given it out to all dietitians, and everyone can use it, so that they can feel the ease to communicate with the South Asian communities.
Hmm. Yeah. And Faria, later once we finish this podcast, are you happy to give me a link to the South Asian Eat Well guide so I can put it in the description of this podcast for people
Yes,
to?
yes.
I feel like it's really, really important. And when we study as dietitians, there's this thing that we're taught to do is mostly about simple swaps.
Yeah.
So it could be for like mostly like Western communities, from like white bread to brown bread to keep you more full, improve your blood sugars. But from swapping from one culture to another culture, I don't think that's a simple swap. Do you think?
It is really difficult to explain, but like once you, as dietitians, I would say, once you get grips with it, I think it will not be very hard. Like, for example, with the South Asian culture, when you say bread, in the South Asian culture, we will have roti or chapati. So,
Mm,
roti chapati is usually made at home. Very few people would get it from the supermarkets, but most of the time people make it at home. So, just think about flours. So, are you using wholemeal flour or are you using white flour? So, when you're making the dough, just make the dough from the wholemeal flour and make your roti. So it's just a little bit of a change, but yeah, I can understand that it can be quite challenging. As I said, that I was quite daunted doing that consultation with the lady from Nigeria. So it can be challenging. Yes.
yeah. Oh, that's amazing. And I think you really geared up people who are listening, especially people who are South Asians, to work with you.
Yes.
Um, and if Fariha, if people want to work with you, where can they find you?
So I've got my website, which is called www.fareehaj.com. You can get in touch with me through my website. I'm very active on social media, on my Instagram, that's dietitian Fareeha J, my Facebook, Fareeha J. I'm quite active on Twitter. I try doing some TikToks as well. I'm not very successful at that, but working on that as well. So yeah, all social media platforms, you'll find me there.
Okay, and then I'll link all of your descriptions, including also the South Asian Eat Well guide in the link of the description, this podcast. Okay, Fariha, and if there's just one more send-off message for anyone who's struggling with diet and who's just overwhelmed by all the food information, diet culture, is there just one message you can give to someone who's listening?
Yes, my message to all the South Asian listeners would be that please, remember that weight is not the only measure. Start giving yourself that respect and start loving yourself for who you are, not how you look. And give respect to yourself, and then you'll see other people will also give you that respect. Love yourself. Follow a healthy diet, but don't be too much focused on the diet culture which we say, but make sure that you're having a healthy diet, make sure that you're getting a good sleep, eating patterns are good, you're hydrated, you're trying to control your stress levels, and then start loving your body and be satisfied, be happy with who you are.
Wow, I just really love your advice and you're just so wise. All this information. Well, thanks, Fariha, for coming along to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for having me.
If you found this podcast helpful, you would definitely benefit from my binge eating freedom course in my website, bingedietitian.com. Learn more about the triggers to why you're binge eating and how to stop binge eating for good. No more food guilt, no more jumping from diet to diet, and no more shame. Go to the link in this episode for my binge eating freedom course to be one step closer to being binge free, starting today.